Well, we talked about the 60 election. What about 1964? By that time, you were in college, correct?
I was in college
Okay.
when Kennedy was assassinated.
Right.
And so,
Were you politically involved at the time?
yeah.
I mean, you were a member of the Young Republicans. Were you talking to other folks that disagreed with you and trying to advocate?
Not too much. My life was so difficult being in a wheelchair on a totally inaccessible campus. And it was decades before the Americans with Disability Act was passed. It was physically very, very hard for me to go to college, and I just didn't have a whole lot of social life because I'm so busy trying to fold up my wheelchair and load it in off the back seat and try to find a bathroom. So I didn't have a whole lot of debates with people, but I did, though, well, let's see, Johnson served then until 64, well, really 65, but he finished, Kennedy was killed November 22nd, 1963, so he had about a year and 2 months left of his term. And so Johnson finished that out, and then he ran for office himself then to be president starting in 65. So the election was in 64. And I was a Goldwater girl. Oh my goodness, I wanted Barry Goldwater. He wrote the classic books on conservatism and constitutionality and just exactly what a federal government is supposed to do, and for states to do the rest under their own authority. And I very much wanted Goldwater. And I had my cap and my outfit, you know, white blouse and a blue skirt and a banner for Goldwater, and
Yeah.
I loved him.
Well, it did not happen, unfortunately.
It didn't happen.
And the Vietnam War was escalated under quite significantly
Yes.
under Johnson. What were your thoughts about that?
The Vietnam War, it had already started in 1955. Vietnam had been divided up into North and South, and the North was communist, and they kept trying to invade South Vietnam. So we'd been supplying them armaments and stuff, and the French were mostly over there fighting. And but Kennedy stayed out of it. He did supply weapons to the South Vietnamese, but he didn't risk any of our soldiers' lives. And then Johnson did, and that also increased the scuttlebutt about whether or not whether the Johnsons had part with Kennedy being assassinated, because apparently they got extremely wealthy during that time. I didn't double check this for this interview, but I've always heard Lady Bird Johnson owned over 50% of Bell Helicopter stock. Well, the Vietnam War was just full of helicopters, and they'd get shot down, and here'd come more. So Bell Helicopter stock shot way up, and we kept getting government contracts. In fact, my brother-in-law flew a helicopter in Vietnam and did 3 tours and got shot down several times, but always got rescued. But he got PTSD really bad. He's never been the same all these decades later. He's still not the warm, friendly person that he used to be. And he can't speak of Vietnam. It's as if it never existed. So I know it was horrendous. And then my first cousin under my dad had both his legs blown off in a landmine. And he's just exactly my age, so minus 2 months. So I, secondhand, through my husband's brother being there and my first cousin being so terribly injured, it was very real, very, very real. But all this time, Lady Bird was getting filthy rich, and who knows what else. And I had heard early on, when they first got America in the war, that she was in the black market, but I'm thinking, you're not going to make much money selling cigarettes or something like that, but it was big time, black market. So Johnson, even though he's from Texas and I now live a suburb of Austin, Texas, and the LBJ Museum's there, and it is a fascinating museum. So I don't have a lot of respect.
Yeah. I'm sure even though you didn't like him at the time, you do look back to the Kennedy administration with
I like the Kennedy.
quite a bit of nostalgia.
Yes, well, I just kind of wish, like, if we thought that was liberal, we had no idea what liberal was. So now we know. And during the Johnson years, there were so many draft dodgers. And here's another way that my viewpoint has really changed. I thought the ones that refused to go fight Vietnam, they said it was an unjust war. I thought they were all terrible. They were traitors to America. A lot of them went to Canada, and they just refused to fight. They'd rather be jailed than fight, and they became the beatniks or the hippies or the flower children. And I just couldn't stand them. At the same time, though, there was a real spiritual move of God, and we had the Jesus freaks, of which I guess I was on the edge of that, and I hate to think of myself as freak. But anyway, so you had the ultra-liberal flower children, and then you had the Jesus freaks, and as looking back, there's a lot of similarity between the two groups, although we believe different things. But it was an era that you could freely express your opinion and be radical and be accepted. So, yeah.
Okay. And then I suppose my final question is, as you've observed so many presidential campaigns over the years, have you noticed how any changes in the way that presidents will garner the vote and support?
Oh, yeah. It was more handshaking and just rallies and people throwing in. We still have rallies, but now I guess that changed during the Kennedy years. Kennedy and Nixon had the first presidential debate on TV. And Kennedy was young and glamorous, and Nixon was much older, and Nixon was so monotone, and, you know, he did not show well on TV. And a lot of people say that's what won for Kennedy. And so from that point on, the TV debates became very pivotal, and the way you present yourself, and then don't get me started about how politicians are elected today. You know, it's so crooked because the media is so controlled. It's always been controlled to a degree, but it is just so manipulated now, and reporters that try to tell the truth can lose their jobs or get threatened, and they have to retract their stories, and it's really pathetic. We've lost our sense of integrity as a nation, and there's people no longer believe in absolute truth. And even if you don't believe in truth, how do I know that anything you are saying is correct? It's pretty sad.
It's a can of worms, too.
Yeah.
That's a conversation we'll have off camera.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for this interview. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Well, I love you, David. You're my grandson. My only one.
I actually hired her. She's not my grandma. All right. Thank you.
Okay.